Game.
Okay. Hello everyone. We sure have a lot of audience here. So before we start, I will introduce myself. My name is Julia Nicole Reyes, and today we're gonna talk about more science, technology, and society. The topic on the human person flourishing in terms of science and technology. In this topic, we may ask the question, what is happiness? Can you tell me, Angeline, what is your happiness?
Para sa akin is yung happiness is nagde-describe ng emotion mo. Siyempre 'pag masaya ka, nade-describe yung sarili mo kung ano yung emotion na meron ka. Halimbawa, sa achievement na meron ka, 'di ba, is masaya ka. Meron pang umiiyak na masaya, 'di ba? Yun yung para sa akin is happiness.
Yes. Thank you. So, about you, Lornet?
Okay. So happiness for me is when your life fulfills your needs. In other words, happiness comes when you feel satisfied, fulfilled. Happiness is a feeling of contentment that life is just it should be. Perfect happiness, enlightenment comes when you have all your needs satisfied.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. So, happiness in psychology. Happiness is a mental or emotional state of well-being which can define by, among others, positive or pleasant emotions ranging from contentment to intense of joy. So that is the field of psychology. They that how they define from happinesses. So to behaviorists, happiness is a cocktail of emotions we experience when we do something good or positive. So it is but more on scientific perspective. So to neurologists, happiness is the experience of a flood of hormones released in the brain as a reward for behavior that prolongs survival. So that what happiness differences branches science of study. According to Aristotle, happiness is the meaning and the purpose of life, the whole aim and end of human existence. So for me, happiness is not about getting all you want, and it's all about enjoying all you have. That's the happiness depends upon ourselves, right? So my happiness is when you are having a complete family, when you are having a family that support you. So that is my happiness, and having a friend that loves you no matter what. That's my happiness. So um, because the true meaning of happiness is by the feeling of joy, satisfaction, contentment, and fulfillment. So, while happiness has many different definition, it is described involving a positive emotion and life satisfaction. When you are promoted to work, they feel happiness, right? And where people are successful, they feel happiness. So, um, is happiness a destination or a journey? Okay, so for me, happiness is a journey. That is my perspective. Life is about living. Focusing on light on also shine, sorry. Focusing on the journey also shine a light on what else you get out of trying to reach your goals. Happiness is not there but here, not tomorrow, but today. So so wait. So we had kind of happiness which call is eudaimonia. So eudaimonia, a term that combines the Greek words for good and spirit to describe the ideology. So, if what eudaimonia is. So, eudaimonia defines happiness as the pursuit of becoming a better person. Eudaimonias, shall we call them, do this by challenging themselves intellectually or by engaging in activities that make them spiritually richer people. So, let's talk about eudaimonia. So, um, what is eudaimonia? Wait, no. So, make okay. So, let's talk about eudaimonia. From the Greek words good and spirit, um, it's from the word itself, eudaimonia. It is a good spirited. It was originally coined by Aristotle. Describe the pinnacle of happiness that is attainable for us humans. Okay. Um. Wait. So it is also one very important concept, human flourishing. Okay. That is that is eudaimonia. So according to Aristotle, there is an end of all the actions that we perform which we desire for itself. That's called eudaimonia. Flourishing or happiness, that's simple, right? So which is desired for its own sake with all other things being desired on its account. So since we are human being, we will call this eudaimonia. Then sorry. Since we are human being, so we will call this human flourishing. Okay. And the next is Angeline, human flourishing.
Human flourishing, from the Nicomachean Ethics, philosophical inquiry into the nature of the good life from the human being, written by Aristotle and Nicomachean. From the human flourishing arises a result of the different content much as promises, friendship, health, and power. Human flourishing is important because it promotes their growth, development, and holistic well-being from the individual and the population. It serves as a moral basis from what it means to be a human being. If we are desire individual ability to flourish, we will be better equipped to analyze and escape the health policy and public health. We will better achieve the health equity worldwide. Human flourishing is an effort to achieve a self-actualization and fulfillment within in the context of the large community of an individual, each with a right to sue his or her own much effort. Kailangan tanggapin mo kung ano ang meron ka bilang ikaw at individual na bawat isa na may karapatang ipagpatuloy ang sariling pagsisikap mo bilang isang tao. Involve the rational use of one individual human potential, include the talents, ability, and virtues in a pursuit of freely and rationally chosen the value and the goal. Kasangkutan ng mga karaniwang kagamitan ng individual na potential ng tao, kabilang ang mga talento, kakayanan, ang virtual at paghahangad ng isang malaya at pangangatarwilang pumiling na mahalaga at layunin.
The next is Flornet.
Okay. Science and technology. Science encompasses the systematic study of the structure and behavior of the physical and natural world through observation and experiment, and technology is the application of scientific knowledge for practical purposes. Scientific knowledge is used to create new technologies. New technologies often allow scientists to explore nature in different ways and make new discoveries. And some of the examples of technologies that have helped science advance include the telescope and microscope. Science and technology is a topic that encompasses science, technology, and the interactions between the two. Science is a systematic enterprise that builds and organizes knowledge in the form of explanations and predictions about nature and the universe. Technology is the collection of techniques, methods, or processes used in the production of goods or services or in the accomplishment of objectives, such as scientific investigation or any development by generating demand for new instruments to address a scientific question or by illustrating technical possibilities previously unconsidered. In turn, technology may drive scientific investigation by creating demand for technology improvements that can only be produced through research and by raising questions about the underlying principles that a new technology relies on. For the majority of human history, technological improvements, rather, were achieved by chance, trial and error, or spontaneous inspiration. When the modern scientific enterprise matured in the Enlightenment, it primarily concerned itself with the basic equations of nature, questions rather of nature. Research and development directed towards immediate technical application is a relatively recent occurrence arising with the Industrial Revolution and becoming commonplace in the 20th century. Reflective thinking. Next slide. Yan. Okay, reflective thinking. So, reflective thinking, it is the notion of awareness of one's knowledge, assumptions, and past experiences. Your past learning is experience provide the context for your thoughts and are therefore unique to you, but reflective thinking is a dynamic process that continues to develop and evolve as you learn and respond to new experiences, situations, events, or information. Like in practical terms, this is the process where you interpret and evaluate your experiences, check that they make sense to you, create meaning, justify actions, and solve problems. And it helps with your future planning. Like, for example, have you ever missed the bus and thought the next time I'll be the house 5 minutes earlier? This is an example for you being reflective. You thought about an experience and decided to learn from it and do something different next time. That's it. Next slide for the next reporter, please.
Thank you, Flornet. Okay. Next is the meditative thinking. Kind of thinking that thinks the truth of being, that belongs to being and listen to it. It means to notice, to observe, to ponder, to awaken an awareness of what is actually taking place around us and in us. So that is example of that you have something that is a problematic. So meditative thinking uh, does not mean being detached from reality or Heidegger says floating unaware above reality. So para saan kasi yung meditative thinking? Ito yung kapag sobrang stress ka na, then yung ang tawag doon, pwede kang meditate ng nakaganto. Tapos, yung kalmado lang yung paligid mo, yung tawag doon, tahimik lang dapat. Tapos, kailangan makapag-concentrate ka. Yung kahit sobrang stress ka na, tapos, di ba, pag sobrang stress ka na talaga, try mong gawin yon yung mag-meditate ka. Then, after nun, marerelax yung isip mo, parang magkakaroon ka na ng idea sa lahat ng gagawin mo, yung ganun. Kasi ginagawa ko din yun pag sobrang stress na ako. Nagme-meditate din ako. Tapos, inhale, exhale, then after that, mga siguro 30 minutes, yun. Marerelax na yung utak mo, mape-fresh na yung lahat ng mga ano mo, pag-isip mo. Then, so, yun. Next reporting is, principle of human flourishing.
Okay. Principles of human flourishing. Dignity of the human person, innate personal values or rights which demands respect for all people regardless of race, social class, wealth, etc. Okay, for dignity of the human person, excuse me. First, principles of human flourishing. So what are the principles of human flourishing? It involves being ethically informed, being able to demonstrate respect for dignity for each person and for human diversity, recognizing a responsibility for the common good, the environment, and society, and applying either perspectives in informed decision making. So, the dignity of the human person, or should I say, human dignity, for what I've understood, is that human dignity is the recognition that human beings possesses a special value intrinsic to their humanity as such as worthy of respect simply because they are human beings. Thus, every human being, regardless of age, ability, status, ethnicity, etc., is to be treated with respect. Okay, next is common good, sacrificing self-interests to provide for the basic human needs of everyone makes the whole community flourish. Okay. So, the common good refers to those facilities, whether material, cultural, or institutional, that the members of a community provide to all members in order to fulfill a relational obligation. They all have to care for certain interests that they have in common, which benefits society as a whole in contrast to the private good of individuals and sections of society. Next is preferential option for the poor. Okay, when decisions are made by first considering the poor. The preferential option throughout the Bible to preference being given or principle individuals are able to do. Society should not take over. And what small societies can do, larger societies should not take over. Well-being of the poor and powerless of society in the teachings and commands of God, as well as the prophets and the other righteous people. The bishops speak of the care of the poor, or the preferential rather, option of for the poor as a biblical mandate. In their description of the term, the bishop stated that this option does not imply exclusion of anyone, but it does imply a preference for the poor and a drawing closer to them. Next, subsidiarity. When all those affected by a decision are involved in making it. Okay. Subsidiarity is a principle of social doctrine that all social bodies exist for sake of the individual, so that what individuals are able to do, society should not take over. And what small societies can do, larger should not take over. Like for example, the application of the principle of subsidiarity is the position of the Roman Catholic Church, that parents should have the maximum reasonable amount of authority over and responsibility for raising the children. It is a principle of social organizations that holds the social and political issues should be dealt with at the most immediate or local level that is consistent with their resolution. Next, universal purpose of goods. Okay, universal purpose of goods. The earth's resources serve every person's needs regardless of who owns them. Okay. Universal purpose of goods is a concept in Catholic theology by which the Catholic Church professes that the goods of creations are destined for humankind as a whole, but also recognizes the individual right to private property. The principle of the universal purpose of the goods is an invitation to develop an economic vision inspired by moral values that permit people not to lose sight of the origin purpose of these goods, so as to bring about the world of fairness and solidarity in which the creation of wealth can take on positive. Next one is stewardship of creation. Duty to care for the earth as a God-given gift is a personal responsibility for the common good. Stewardship of creation interpreted Rather, through the horizon of faith, the stewardship of creation is the calling to participate in the salvific future of God and an anticipatory sorry, ethic that seeks to protect, sustain, and restore creation. And for the promotion of peace. Uh, the words are too little to see kasi. Duty to duty peace. Everyone has the duty to respect and collaborate in personal relationship and at national and global levels. National and global. And for the promotion of peace, the Catholic social teaching principle of promotion of peace is about peace as the fruit of justice and love. All peace requires human for life, which in turn involves the safeguarding of the dignity and freedom of people. All peace rather requires respect for human life, which in turn involves the safeguarding of the dignity and freedom of the people. And according to the fruit of justice and love, peace is the fruit of justice and love and is dependent upon right order among human beings. Peace is far more than just an absence of war. It is an essential attribute of God, a value to be embraced by all humanity, and universal duty. And when we say participation, it is an action in taking part of something. Okay, global solid. Next slide, global solidarity. Okay, 15. Different conceptions of human flourishing. Eastern focus is community-centric. Individual should sacrifice himself for the sake of society. Chinese Confucian system. Japanese Bushido encourage studies of literature, sciences, and art for the greater course. Western more focused on the individual human flourishing as an end. Okay. Different conceptions about human flourishing. Eastern and Western. So Western philosophy deals with individualism while Eastern philosophy is related to collective collectivism. Both philosophies center on virtues. Eastern philosophy takes more of a spiritual approach while Western philosophy is more hands-on. So, Western deals with individualism, which means a doctrine that interests of the individual are ought to be ethnically paramount, also guided by such a doctrine, and the conception that all values, rights, and duties originate in individuals. Like for example, when you support financially and do not depend on anyone else of your needs, this is an example of individualism. When the government allows citizens to be responsible for their own retirement instead of relying on social security, this is an example of individualism. While the Eastern is take more of spiritual approach, which means that in general, it includes a sense of connection to something bigger than ourselves and typically involves a search for meaning of life. As such, it is a universal human experience, something that touches us all. Like for example, when a counselor says they take a spiritual approach to psychotherapy, it often needs further explanation as the word spiritual may have different connotations for yourself and others. Let me begin by saying by what spiritual psychotherapy is not. It is not religious. For me, there is a difference between religious, which I perceive as being based on a particular faith, and spiritual. Religious people may be spiritual, but spiritual people are not necessarily religious in terms of following a particular religion or faith. It is the broad concept of a belief in something beyond the self. It may involve religious tradition centering on that belief in a higher power, but it can also involve a holistic belief in an individual connection to others and to the world as a whole. Instead, it suggests that there is something greater that connects all the beings to each other and to the universe itself. It also prop proposes that there is ongoing existence after death and strives to answer questions about the meaning of life how people are connected to each other, truths about the universe and the other mysteries of human existence. Thank you. Next reporters.
Who is a Martin Heidegger? Martin Heidegger is 1889 to 1976 is a widely acknowledged as one of the most important philosophers of the 20th century, while remaining one of the most controversial. His thinking has contributed much diverse field as a phenomenology, hermeneutics, political theory, psychology, and theology. He has a German philosopher who has a part of continental tradition of philosophy. Continental philosophy is on the set of 19th and 20th century philosophical tradition from the mainland Europe. This sense of the term original among the English-speaking and philosophers in the second half of the 20th century who used to refer a range of thinkers and traditions outside the analytic movement. Martin Heidegger on Science and Technology. Martin Heidegger is 1889 and 1996 as well-known German philosopher examined to the two usual definitions of technology, which mean to an end human activity, because he believed that he think confused and there are questions it is easily overlooked. These two definitions cannot be separated from each other. He called the instrument an anthropological definition of technology, or simplify means by which the human end are realized. To Heidegger, this is may not the full definition, but it misleading one because of his limit or thinking. Heidegger technology has a way of revealing. Technology, according to Heidegger, must be understood as a way of revealing. Heidegger in 1977. Revealing is the most one of the term Heidegger development himself in order to make it possible to think that according to him is not though anymore. Heidegger saw technology as a way of revealing, continue to demand for something to brought out into the open. This bring forth into the open is a two-way relationship that concealed is calling for someone to set upon the being concealment, and the one who received the call set up upon acts upon to conceal to concealed. According to Heidegger, must understand as a way of revealing. Revealing is one of term Heidegger developed himself in order to make it possible think it according to him, not though anymore. Conclusion. The explanation which shift of your perspective of human and most critically yourself in an instant, and your behavior will be changed naturally and safely as a result. To elaborate, people have suffered an agonizing position due to their failure to comprehend the human condition. There is to comprehend why we humans are basically good and not the same. Some people type of dreadful error. It means that we live lives full and of insecurity, and never-ending drive to prove ourselves. In conclusion, the internal wall of for human has been to invalidate ourselves, to establish once and for our inherently good and not bad. And that battle has finally been won, solving the human condition, eliminate the root of confusion and misery in human life.
Much for your interest and attention. Again, we are Group 6. Have a good day and God bless. I am Flornet S. Arabe.
Angela Nicole Reyes. And we are
I'm
groups.
Angeline Biasi. Asiba.
Thank you for listening.